Okay, so is it merely a penalty to fine Americans for not buying health insurance, or is it actually a tax? Well, everybody has an opinion on that, and it's a very complicated constitutional question. So to help us hammer all this out, we invited attorney Ronald Dupree, who is not a fan of Obamacare, and we also have Cynthia Diggs, who is a fan of Obamacare. So both of them very well schooled on the law. So let's get into it. So explain to folks exactly what is happening before the Supreme Court. They're making oral arguments. I think for 4 days they have the attention of the judges. What are they trying to argue for and against?
Well, today is the big argument, and the big argument today is, does the federal government have the power to require individuals to purchase health insurance? And that's the big focus. Today's the main event.
Okay, Mr. Dupree, what percentage of people in the country would be subject to this potential fine or tax if they didn't buy health care?
Well, under the current law, anyone who doesn't purchase health care, once the law takes into effect, would be subject to the fine, basically, and that could include anyone.
But if somebody is poor and they need to buy health care, that would be subsidized by this bill, would be subsidized by the government. I mean, you can't expect somebody who's broke to buy their own health insurance. How does that work?
Well, for one thing, the insurance companies are going to be required to insure people. And for somebody in my practice, for example, working with families, what that means is that if you have a child with a pre-existing condition, then you're going to be able to get coverage for that child. You're not going to be blocked out of the system.
Mr. Dupree, so what would be your response to that? That's been an issue for many years, pre-existing conditions. Somebody loses their job and either themselves or their child has some horrible disease and they can't get insurance. Short of this health care plan, what are the alternatives for dealing with that?
Well, I actually support the ban on excluding pre-existing conditions. And merits of the case aside, as an employment lawyer, I deal with both sides. I deal with employees and employers. And what I see are just real concerns with regard to business as to what the costs will be of health care, of covering your employees. If you have employees, you don't really know what your costs are going to be once the law takes into effect. And if you are looking to start...
How would it excuse me for interrupting, but how would it change for the employer? Because if they're already providing insurance, why would their costs go up?
Because frankly, we just don't know what the costs are going to be. We don't know whether or not the current cost structure will carry over into the new law once everything takes into effect in 2014.
If the Supreme Court decides that this is lawful, that you can fine or tax a citizen for not purchasing something, is it a slippery slope? Is there anything else that can snowball down from that into other aspects of our lives? Well,
the reality of it is the Supreme Court deals with these Commerce Clause cases all the time. There are many cases where Congress, where the court has found Congress has the ability to regulate individual behavior. So I think the slippery slope argument is probably already out there, but this law especially has lots of ramifications for businesses and for folks who want to become entrepreneurs if the current cost structure doesn't carry over into the new law.
Okay, Ms. Diggs, let me ask you this. Everybody, the common people out there, me, you, everybody, all we want to know is that our family will be taken care of. We can have access to a doctor, access to a hospital if we need it, even if we lose our jobs. But it seems to the American people that what happened is this ballooned into a 2,000+ page filled with, I mean, it's incomprehensible to people how gigantic this bill is.
That's absolutely right. You know, one thing that's kind of interesting, though, it's scary, but, for example, it's completely consistent with the philosophy of the Harris County Family Courts. When you go before a Harris County family judge in a divorce or a proceeding involving children, when they look at the final documents in the case, one of the things that the judge wants to know and will specifically check on is, are these parents going to be able to provide health care for the children, or are we going to need chips, or are we going to need something else? So for families, for individuals, for our local government, the most important question is, how is it going to impact everyone's ability to get the health insurance? And you know, of course, what they're talking about today at the Supreme Court level is the Commerce Clause, a much more technical issue.
Yeah, it does get very technical.
Yeah.
Just in the few seconds that we have left, Mr. Dupree, what is your prediction? Because the court is obviously split, and there might be one or two swing votes in there. What's your prediction quickly about what they're going to find?
I think that they're going to find that the law is constitutional. If you look at the Commerce Clause and how it's been applied across the spectrum of issues, I think this fits well within the court's existing decisions with regard to Commerce Clause and with regard to the ability of the federal government to regulate interstate commerce.
Ms. Diggs?
You know, I think that it may not even be close. There are some people weighing in, for example, Professor Laycock of the University of Virginia, who used to be a professor at the University of Texas School of Law, says he thinks it's going to be 8-1.
Wow. All right. Well, we will hopefully find out soon. I know these things can drag on for a while. Thank you very much. And we'd like to have you back if we could, maybe later on after we find out what their decision is, talk about some of the implications of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.